Hey everyone, welcome back. If you haven't watched the first part yet, be sure to check it out. The link's in the description. Now, let's dive right into the next chapter. The Devil's Whisper. 3 months had passed since I burned Vanessa alive. Aaliyah was healing. She still woke up screaming some nights, trapped in the nightmare of what had been done to her. But she fought through it. Judith stayed by her side, ensuring she was never alone. And me? I was back to pretending I was a normal man, running my leather business, living quietly. Then the letter arrived. Not an email, not a text. A handwritten letter, sealed in black wax, sitting in my office like a ticking bomb. I opened it slowly, the weight of the paper strange in my hands. Inside was one sentence. You took from me. Now I take from you. I knew what it meant before the gunfire erupted outside. The attack. The first explosion shattered the front windows of my tannery. I moved fast, ducking behind my desk as bullets ripped through the walls, shredding everything in their path. The smell of burning leather filled the air, thick and acrid. I pulled my pistol, my body moving instinctively. The men outside weren't amateurs. Tactically trained. Military precision. Whoever they were, they wanted me dead. Too bad they didn't know who they were hunting. I stayed low, moving through the back corridors. The emergency exit was already blown open. They were inside. I counted 6, maybe more. My heartbeat was steady, my breath even. I had done this dance before. I waited until the first one passed by me. Then I slit his throat. No gunfire. No sound. His body dropped silently as I slipped his rifle from his grasp. 5 left. I moved through the shadows, catching another by surprise. A quick, brutal twist of his neck. Dead before he even knew I was there. 4. Then the alarms triggered. A cold, mechanical voice echoed through the tannery. Emergency lockdown activated. Steel doors slammed shut, trapping the remaining assassins inside with me. Now, they weren't hunting me. I was hunting them. No mercy. The next one died fast. A bullet to the head, splattering the walls with red mist. The remaining 3 panicked. I could hear their breath, hear the way their boots scraped against the floor in fear. Split up, one of them hissed. They thought it would help. It didn't. The 4th man never saw me coming. I tackled him into a vat of boiling tannery acid, holding his face down as his screams turned into nothing but bubbles. I let go when his skull was half melted. 2 left. The last 2 were running now. Desperate. One of them made it to the exit. He thought he was free. I shot him in the spine. He collapsed, screaming, dragging himself forward with bloody hands. I stepped over him and kicked his pistol away. Who sent you? I asked. He spat blood, laughing weakly. You're already dead. I put a bullet in his head. 1 left. He was hiding now. I could smell his fear. I found him in the storage room, clutching his rifle like a prayer. He pointed it at me, hands shaking. Drop it, I ordered. He hesitated. I shot him in the kneecap. He collapsed, wailing. I grabbed him by the collar, yanking him up. Who sent you? He coughed blood, smiling through the pain. The one you can't kill. I didn't hesitate. I shoved my knife into his gut, twisting until his body went limp. The truth revealed. The tannery was a slaughterhouse by the time I walked out. Blood dripped from my hands. The stench of death was thick in the air. Lopez was waiting outside, leaning against his black SUV. He took one look at the carnage and whistled. Damn, hermano. You could have left one alive for me. I tossed him a blood-stained note, the one from my office. He read it, his smirk fading. Shit. Who is it? I demanded. Lopez exhaled. Someone I hoped was already dead. I didn't blink. Say his name. Lopez hesitated. Then he said 2 words that made my stomach turn. Dante Salazar. The name felt like poison. Dante Salazar, the devil of Bogota. The man who trafficked women like cattle. The man who ran assassination squads across 5 countries. The man I had buried 12 years ago. Or so I thought. I clenched my fists. I killed him. Lopez shrugged. Clearly not well enough. I inhaled slowly, my rage boiling. Where is he? Lopez smiled grimly. You're not gonna like the answer. I waited. Lopez sighed. He's in New York. The next war begins. I wiped the blood from my hands and pulled out my phone. One message to Judith. Take Aaliyah and disappear. Now. One message to Salazar. Gear up. One message to Diego. We're going hunting. Lopez chuckled. You really want to go to war with Dante? I cracked my knuckles. War is all I know. Lopez smirked. Then let's burn New York to the ground. New York was a different kind of battlefield. The city was alive, pulsing with neon lights and filth, where criminals walked in tailored suits, and blood was spilled behind soundproof penthouse doors. And somewhere in this rotting empire, Dante Salazar was waiting. I wasn't here to wait. I was here to drag him out, kicking and screaming, setting the trap. Lopez had connections. A private jet. A warehouse in Brooklyn stocked with weapons and disposable vehicles. Enough firepower to turn half the city into a war zone. I had one goal. Make Dante afraid. Make him run. Because a man like him, a man who built his empire on the suffering of others, would only show himself when he had no choice. So we started with his lieutenants. The first one, Carlos Rivera, thought he was safe in his Manhattan penthouse, surrounded by armed guards. He was wrong. I crashed through his bulletproof windows from a helicopter, rope in one hand, silenced pistol in the other. Before his men could react, I put 2 rounds in each of them, their bodies hitting the marble floor in eerie silence. Carlos staggered back, his face frozen in shock. What the foo? I pistol whipped him, sending his teeth skidding across the floor. He tried to crawl away. I stomped on his knee, shattering it into pulp. Where's Dante? My voice was calm, almost casual. He screamed, clutching his ruined leg. I don't know. I grabbed his wrist and twisted until I felt bones snap. He shrieked. Okay. He's in the Bronx. The old factory. I smiled. Then I tossed him off the balcony. 17 stories down. The thud was barely audible over the city noise. 1 down. The Bronx Massacre. The factory was an abandoned slaughterhouse. Fitting. Dante's men were stationed outside, smoking, laughing, oblivious to the death creeping toward them. I moved through the shadows, unsheathing my knife. The first guard didn't even have time to scream before I slit his throat. His friend turned, eyes wide, just in time to see me drive the blade into his heart. By the time the others noticed, it was too late. Gunfire exploded. I shot out the floodlights, plunging the area into darkness. Then I became the monster they feared. One by one, they fell. A bullet through the temple. A knife buried in the spine. Screams. Panic. Chaos. I carved a bloody path through them, the ground slick with their insides. By the time I reached the main building, no one was left standing. And Dante? He was gone. The devil speaks. Lopez was waiting at the safe house, sipping whiskey when I walked in, covered in blood. He raised an eyebrow. So, he ran, I muttered, stripping off my vest. Lopez smirked. Smart man. I didn't laugh. Find him. Lopez's phone buzzed. He glanced at it, then grinned. Well, hermano, I think he found you. He turned the phone around. A live video feed. And my stomach turned to ice. Because on the screen, Dante wasn't looking at me. He was looking at Aaliyah. She was tied to a chair, her face swollen, her eyes barely open. Dante leaned in, grinning at the camera. Hello, old friend. I gripped the edge of the table so hard my knuckles turned white. Lopez went silent. Dante chuckled. I must admit, I underestimated you. He ran a knife along Alina's cheek, just enough to draw blood. She whimpered. Something inside me snapped. Dante's grin widened. Come find me, Ethan. Then the screen went black. Lopez exhaled slowly. Shit. I didn't speak, didn't breathe, because rage had consumed me. I had burned men alive for less. Now, I was going to bring hell itself. I grabbed my gun, my knife, and my coat. Lopez stood up. I assume we're not calling the cops? I looked at him. Then I said 5 words. The stakes just got personal. Aaliyah is in Dante's hands. Ethan is about to unleash a war that will shake the city. I don't remember leaving the safe house. 1 second, I was watching Dante drag a knife across Alina's cheek. The next, I was already in the SUV, my Jericho 941 fully loaded, my knives strapped in place. Lopez sat beside me, checking his rifle. Diego and Salazar were in the back, silent, waiting. There were no jokes this time, no smirks, just the cold, quiet understanding that when we walked into Dante's hideout, no one was leaving alive. Dante's fortress was a nightclub, a front for his trafficking operation, a high-end slaughterhouse where women were sold, and men with dead eyes watched from the shadows. Tonight, it was full. Perfect. Lopez pulled up 2 blocks away. I stepped out, adjusting my gloves, rolling my neck. Then I turned to the others. No survivors. Diego smirked. Wouldn't have it any other way. The first 2 guards never even knew they were dead. Silenced rounds punched through their skulls, their bodies collapsing like marionettes with their strings cut. I slipped into the club through the back entrance, the pounding bass masking the sound of my knife slicing through a bouncer's throat. Inside was chaos. Men drinking, women dancing, traffickers laughing over their next sale. They never saw us coming. Salazar walked through the crowd with a sawn-off shotgun, blowing holes in anyone who moved. Lopez locked the doors. And me? I hunted. I grabbed a man by his collar, slammed him into the bar, and drove my knife into his eye. He gurgled, twitching, his body going limp. Another tried to run. I shot him through the spine, letting him crawl through broken glass before stomping his skull in. The club was turning into a mass grave. Blood sprayed across the walls. Men begged. I didn't listen. And then, I heard her. Aaliyah's screams. Upstairs. A single cry. Muffled. Choked. I ran. I didn't think. Didn't care about the bullets flying past me. Didn't care about the bodies dropping around me. I only cared about getting to her. The hallway was guarded. I put a bullet through the first man's throat. The second lunged at me. I grabbed his jaw and yanked until his neck snapped like dry wood. I kicked the door open. And there she was. Aaliyah, tied to a chair. Blood dripping from her lip. Dante stood behind her, his knife pressed to her throat. Smiling. The standoff. Well. Dante's voice was smooth, amused. I was starting to think you wouldn't make it. I leveled my pistol at his head. Let her go. He chuckled. Or what? You'll shoot me? He pressed the blade deeper, a single drop of blood rolling down Aaliyah's skin. Her eyes were wide, terrified. I clenched my jaw. You don't want to do this. Dante grinned. Oh, but I do. Then he leaned in, whispering into Aaliyah's ear. Tell Daddy how many times we've touched you. Her breath hitched, and something inside me snapped. No more games. I didn't hesitate, didn't think. I fired, not at Dante's head, but at his hand. The bullet tore through his wrist, shattering bone, sending the knife flying. Dante screamed, clutching his ruined hand. I was already moving. I crossed the room in 2 strides, grabbed him by the throat, and slammed him against the wall. He gasped, struggling, his fingers clawing at my grip. You shouldn't have touched her, I whispered. Then I drove my knife into his stomach. Slow, twisting, his body convulsed, his breath hitching in a wet, gurgling choke. Please, he rasped. I ripped the blade upward, splitting him open. His insides spilled onto the floor. I let go. His body slumped forward, twitching. I watched him die, and I didn't blink. Aaliyah collapsed into my arms, sobbing. I held her close, running a hand through her hair, whispering, It's over. You're safe. She clung to me, shaking. Lopez stepped into the room, surveying the carnage. He let out a low whistle. Damn, Hermano. You really went to work on him. I didn't respond. I just held my daughter. Held her like I should have done years ago. We left the club in flames. Bodies burning. New York had been cleansed in blood. But as we drove into the night, my phone buzzed. A message. Unknown number. You killed my brother. Now I kill yours. I froze. Lopez glanced at me. What? I stared at the screen, my hands tightening into fists. Dante had a brother. And now? Now, he was coming for me. Dante is dead. But the war isn't over. His brother has just declared war, and Ethan is about to drag him into hell. Dante was rotting in hell. His body was left in that burning club, his insides spilling onto the floor like a gutted pig. But his brother was still breathing. And now? Now, he was coming for me. The warning. The text stayed on my screen, burning into my mind. You killed my brother. Now I kill yours. Lopez read over my shoulder. He muttered a curse. I didn't know Dante had a brother. Neither did I. I clenched my jaw. Get me a name. Lopez pulled out his phone, making a call. 30 seconds later, we had it. Mateo Salazar. A ghost. No records, no arrests, no photos. Just whispers. Trafficker. Arms dealer. Killer. And now? My enemy. The first strike. I didn't wait. Mateo had declared war. That meant he was already moving. And if he wanted to threaten my family, I'd take his apart first. Brooklyn Butchery. His men were holed up in a warehouse near the docks. A drug front, doubling as a holding facility for women being shipped out like cattle. Tonight, the shipments would stop. Lopez, Diego, and I arrived in black tactical gear, suppressed weapons, and enough ammunition to turn the place into a war zone. I climbed onto a shipping container, getting a view of the guards. 4 at the entrance, 2 on the roof, more inside. Lopez checked his watch. Time to say goodnight. I pulled the trigger. 1 rooftop guard dropped instantly. His skull cracked against the pavement. The second barely had time to react before a bullet punched through his throat, cutting off his scream. Lopez and Diego moved in, knives flashing in the dark. A blade across a jugular. A silenced round through the back of the skull. By the time we reached the main entrance, 6 men were already corpses. We stepped inside. And then, we made it rain blood. The slaughter. I didn't stop. Didn't hesitate. The first guard turned boom. A hollow point round turned his chest into shredded meat. The second swung a machete. I caught his wrist, broke it, and shoved his own blade into his gut. He screamed as his intestines spilled out, hands shaking as he tried to shove them back in. I let him bleed. Gunfire erupted. Diego was a demon with his shotgun, tearing through bodies like they were made of paper. Lopez moved with surgical precision, putting bullets through skulls, one by one. It was a massacre. Blood painted the concrete floor. Men begged. I didn't listen. I grabbed the last survivor, slammed his head into a metal crate, and whispered, "Where's Mateo?" He coughed blood. "Fuck you." I grabbed his hand and snapped 3 fingers backward. Crack, crack, crack. His scream was inhuman. "Mateo," I repeated. He sobbed. "Miami. He's in Miami." I shoved my pistol under his chin. "Good boy." Then I pulled the trigger. His skull exploded, brain matter splattering across the crates. I turned to Lopez. "We leave tonight." He nodded. "Time to bury another Salazar. Miami bound." The jet was fueled and waiting. Mateo thought he was safe. He was dead wrong. I leaned back in my seat, rolling my neck. Lopez poured a drink. "So, hermano, what's the plan?" I exhaled. And then I said the words that would turn Miami into a war zone. "No more hiding. We're taking the fight straight to him. The war isn't over. Mateo Salazar has made his move. Now, Ethan is about to wipe out his entire empire. Next stop, Miami." Miami was a different kind of battleground. The city glowed with neon lights, but beneath that surface, it reeked of desperation. Corruption ran through its veins like a deadly virus, and Mateo Salazar had his hands on every corrupt pulse of the city. He thought he could hide behind his empire, but he was wrong. Now, I was bringing the war to his doorstep. Welcome to Miami. The jet touched down under the cover of darkness, the runway hidden from prying eyes. We disembarked, the salty air hitting my face as I stepped onto the tarmac. Lopez, Diego, and I moved through the shadows, blending into the city's underbelly like ghosts. Mateo didn't know we were here yet, but by the time he did, it would be too late. We had one goal: destroy everything he had. First blood. We didn't waste time. I knew Mateo's operation, his clubs, his shipments, his safe houses. He ran his criminal empire from the shadows, but we were about to drag him into the light. Our first stop was one of his strip clubs, a front for money laundering and arms dealing. The guards didn't stand a chance. We infiltrated through the back entrance, silenced weapons in hand. As soon as the first guard saw us, I shot him in the head, his body crumpling to the ground. Inside, chaos reigned. The patrons had no idea they were about to become collateral damage in a war they never asked for. The bouncers didn't get a chance to react before Lopez and Diego made quick work of them. I didn't hesitate as I moved deeper into the building, clearing rooms, making sure the path to Mateo was clear. But he wasn't here. Just more blood, more bodies. The message: we didn't leave empty-handed. Lopez found a document, a ledger of sorts, detailing Mateo's operations and contacts. But there was one name that stood out above the rest: Ricardo Vega. Ricardo Vega was a name I knew well. He was the right hand of Mateo Salazar, and he ran his smuggling operation with ruthless efficiency. If anyone knew where Mateo was hiding, it would be Vega. The chase. Miami was a maze of streets, alleys, and hideouts. But this time, I wasn't chasing shadows. I tracked down Vega's location to a warehouse on the outskirts of the city. It was heavily guarded, but I was used to that. I didn't need backup. I approached from the rear, moving silently between the crates and shipping containers. The guards never saw me coming. One by one, they fell without a sound. Inside the warehouse, Vega was waiting. He stood in front of a table, his back to me, as he arranged shipments of weapons. The moment he turned, he saw me, and his face went pale. "You," he whispered, taking a step back. I didn't let him speak. A single shot to the knee dropped him to the ground. "Where is Mateo?" I demanded. He groaned in pain, clutching his leg. I don't know." I leaned in close, my voice cold. "You know more than you're telling me." Vega looked up at me, fear in his eyes. "He's at the mansion, the one on the cliffs." I didn't wait for more. I grabbed him by the collar and dragged him out of the warehouse. "Tell Mateo I'm coming for him," I said before I shot him in the head. The mansion on the cliffs. Mateo's mansion was perched on the cliffs overlooking the ocean, a symbol of his power and wealth. But tonight, it would be his tomb. We stormed the mansion like a storm itself. Unstoppable, brutal. Mateo's guards fought hard, but they were outmatched. It didn't take long for us to reach the top floor. And there he was, Mateo Salazar. He stood at the window, looking out over the city he thought he owned. When he heard us, he turned, a smirk on his face. Well, the devil himself comes to finish what he started. I stepped forward, my gun aimed at his chest. "It's over, Mateo." He laughed, dark and cold. "You really think you can end this? You killed Dante, but you didn't kill the legacy. I am the future." I tightened my grip on the gun. "Not anymore." Mateo lunged for his desk, reaching for a hidden gun. But I was faster. A single shot. His body hit the floor with a sickening thud. I walked over to him, watching the life drain from his eyes. "You should have stayed dead," I muttered. Then I turned, leaving his mansion behind, the echoes of his death filling the empty halls. Miami was in flames, its streets littered with the bodies of Mateo's men. I had done what I set out to do: eliminate the Salazar threat once and for all. But as I stood there, my phone buzzed again. Another message. Unknown number. "You killed Mateo. Now I will kill you." I smiled grimly. The war was far from over. Stay tuned for the final part. Things are just getting started. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you don't miss what happens next.